Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. As you know, this is Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 34, Where Do You Belong? So all month we've been talking about how important, I think actually crucial, environments are to our well-being. And this week I want to get down into more specifically about the basic need for belongingness that we all have. So again, that's a need, not a want. And belongingness is huge. We know now that it is the key to longevity. It is the cure for loneliness. It helps us feel more secure within ourselves if we feel like we're not the only one. If we feel like we belong to something and we matter and we're needed. Irving Yalom wrote a lot about how his belief is that we join groups. We join societal groups, we join church groups, political groups, cultural groups, so that we can feel safer in our survival. So it can actually kind of get pretty basic. One of the definitions for belongingness, according to dictionary.com, is the quality or state of being an essential or important part of something. So being an important part of something so that we matter and that we're seen. I also want to talk today about where do you fit? What people are you a good fit for and why? What is in alignment with who you truly are or who you truly are becoming and why? And so lots of introspection in this episode. Hopefully it'll get you thinking quite a bit if you have not thought about this stuff before, or maybe solidify some thoughts and feelings you've already had. So where do you fit? So what do I mean by that? Like, what kind of people do you fit with? And some of the typical ones are creative people. Do you figure you're a creative person? Is that something you enjoy? What kind of creative person? Because there's a billion different kinds. And why you love that. And so who are you like-minded with? Maybe it's on a cognitive level, maybe brainy people, maybe philosophers, maybe people who like to problem solve. Maybe it's physical, maybe people who like to be in shape, they like to do extreme sports, they like to compete in competitions, things like that. You know, is the physical very important to you, and why does that make sense for you? Is that something that you enjoy, that you value? Why do you value it? You know, maybe you're an environmental person and you really care about the environment and you like to hang around people who do, and maybe that includes doing something. So maybe some volunteer work in that regard will put you with like-minded people. What about success? What if you're an entrepreneur or you want to move up in your career and you want to hang out with people who are doing the same because it really matters to them and it matters to you? You know, there's education and learning. Some people just love to be in learning environments. I know I have friends who just are like walking encyclopedias to me, which is great because they're always reading and they're always learning and they're always listening and talking to people, and it's so enjoyable to sit with them. So if that really matters to you, if you may not have liked the work but loved the classroom kind of thing, or loved conversations that are stimulating and you walk away learning something new, that's for you. Maybe helping others. It doesn't have to be just environmental where you want to volunteer. Maybe you really think that that's important. That might be a big value of yours to give back. And so obviously you're going to fit better in groups. Either that's your close friend group, and that's what you guys do on the weekends, or you seek out a group of folks who like to go do that. Maybe not all the time, but just like maybe several times a year, a big project that you can dive into and feel good. Activism is a part of that too. It could be political activism, it could be social activism, it could be taking part in a community organization where you can do some good. Some people just love to go explore and travel, maybe do the weekend trip, maybe do longer travel trips. Some people love to travel and they're very serious about it, and that brings them joy and it brings them meaning. So these are just some examples of places where you can fit and where you can belong. Now, most people will say family. Family first. Family is what we need. And ideally, yes, I've spoken about it before. I mean, I think it's almost biologically built in to want to belong to a group. And ideally, that would be your family of origin that you were born with. Not everyone has that, and not everyone has a family of origin that they want to belong to for very valid reasons. You know, especially if you start doing this work and you're getting healthier, you've probably already noticed that you're outgrowing those folks a little bit, and there's some grief work around that. So it isn't always family, and it isn't always your neighbors. You may live in a neighborhood and kind of feel out of place. And that's what we're talking about today. We just want to talk about, where do you think you fit and why? And have you even thought about that before? Have you been afraid to think about that? Some people are afraid to think about it because then they're like, oh boy, I'm really going to have to do some upheaval in my life and maybe I don't want to. So places where you fit. Feeling connected, feeling like you're at home, can also come up in a partnership, like a marriage or a living partnership. People have kids together. I think that's even more solidified, is what people tell me, is that sense of family, that their little family unit. You know, that's a big place where we crave belongingness. And we know, the research shows, that the more belongingness we feel in our marriage or our partnership, the healthier we are individually. And, of course, the healthier that relationship is going to be as well. Family values. I work with a lot of couples that, you know, we talk about the marriage values or the relationship values, and we get that solid and values that they can share and live out. And then we kind of automatically turn to, what about the kids? You know, do the kids know what your family values are, what you stand for? You know, if there was a plaque above your door, what would it say? Welcome to our home. This is what we're about. I have some families who actually do that, and I think that's really damn cool. And they live that out. They have family meetings every Sunday night, and they talk about, this is what we're about. This is how we want to be. And we live that out. So the kids really feel more secure because they're seeing that and they trust it. Because as the grown-ups, we're making sure that there's some congruence there, at least for the most part. Remember, gangs and cults have it right. They have the market cornered on belongingness and identity and who the hell we are and who you need to be one of us, and so on and so forth. And that is why they draw people who don't have healthy places to belong to. And that is what I talk to parents about all the time. It's really, really important for kids to feel like they have healthy places to belong to, that they want to belong to, that they're proud of, that they're not embarrassed by, that it's not a bunch of drama and dysfunction, that there is some trust, there is some congruence. So if you, let's say, tell the kids, you know, we want to be a family that values emotional safety in our relationships. Well, then you don't let them beat up on each other and cuss at each other. They can have conflict, but they're not allowed to be nasty. And you and your partner aren't doing it either in front of them. So that's kind of what this looks like. There's neighbors, there's churches, there's synagogues, there's temples and other spiritual groups. Obviously, belongingness or community is a big part of many religions, other spiritually focused groups. There's also other groups like going to the gym and seeing your friends at the gym every week. You know, maybe it's exercise classes you go to. Maybe it's a book club. Maybe it's pickup sports. Maybe it's other outdoor activities. So different places that you can belong to but also where you fit. And again, hopefully by this point, you've given some thought about who you are, your identity, your self-concept, what your boundaries are. And like next month, we're going to get more and more into values. So I think that'll be helpful once we get there and you can really flesh out this stuff. But values is a huge concept that takes time. We got to sit in that for a while and really give it thought. Give it thoughtful thought, right? Because you might be in some environments where you may not fit. You might be that fish on a bicycle and not even realize that's why you have panic attacks or bouts of depression or you're irritable or shut down a bit or just maybe don't share all of you. Belongingness means I can feel safe and I can be my authentic self. I can let my hair down. I can be vulnerable. I can be open. I can be imperfect. You can be imperfect. We can help each other grow. We can support each other when shit hits the fan. We can lovingly confront each other, right? Because we care. I also think that places where we truly fit are where we are best fed. Where we are best fed. Emotionally fed. You know, what influences your sense of self? Places where you feel safe. Places where you matter. And you're necessary to the group. They miss you when you're not there. Others need you and they enjoy you. And it's value added and you feel better for having spent time with them. The psychologically being fed. Being seen, being heard, being noticed, being acknowledged, being appreciated, being noticed for your unique gifts, like maybe you're the one who brings a wonderful sense of humor or leadership or connection or caring, compassion, or just getting shit done. Maybe you're a queen of logistics. There's a lot of like-mindedness, so there's very little anxiety about being understood and accepted. They know you. They know you and accept you already. People who struggle with social anxiety, it's really all about the fear that they're going to get to know me and not like me. I'm not going to be good enough. That is why I think that self-esteem work goes hand in hand with belonging to at least a couple folks who love you right where you are. So we're going to get into more of this next month, like I said, in terms of values. But I want you to think about what are your values, what are they, or where are you headed? Because it's okay to grow into your values, and it's okay to want to belong to a group that maybe you don't feel ready to belong to yet, and there's a gap. That's totally fine. Because I don't think that things are put on your heart for no reason. I just don't believe that. I think I've sat with enough people for enough years to say, hell no, it would not be put on your heart for no reason. You know, maybe you're just not there yet, and that's okay. You know, as long as these aren't like status things that we're talking about, like I have to have a big car and a nice house to be good enough and be accepted, I'm not talking about that. But if you tell yourself something like, I really want to be wealthier because I want to be proud of myself, I don't want to worry about money, and I really love to have money to give away and help people or maybe travel or go back to school, those are fine. Those are things that are congruent with who you say you are and want to be. But kind of how do you know that your wish to be is a meant to be, right? Well, I think there's a few guidelines that we can pay attention to that help us discern this. So how do you know? Well, I think it just keeps popping up like quietly and it kind of won't go away. You know, it just keeps hitting your radar and it's like a pesky gnat where you just keep swatting at it and push it away. No, I can't do that. Just notice. Notice what keeps popping up quietly. Not anxiety-based, just like, that's interesting. It keeps hitting your heart. I don't know how else to describe that, but you know what I mean. You have a why is the next one. That's the big one. Like, let's say you would love to be with a group who does a lot of travel, but right now you don't have the cash to do that. So your gap is to work on your budget, making extra money, whatever you need to do, right? So you could get in that space where you can be and you can see yourself as a part of that group, because that's something you dream about. Whenever you hear the topic come up, your ears perk up, you're interested, you watch that TV program on it, things like that. That's kind of how you know. So it's okay if you're not there yet. You want to be there, and there's just a gap. There's things to do, things to get out of the way in order for us to get there. The other way you know is it's congruent with other things about you, right? It's an alignment. So if you love to travel, maybe other aspects of you are you love cultures, you love to learn, you love art, you love peoples, or you love to see natural beauty. So those are some examples where, yeah, that would really be in alignment, wouldn't it? So your wish to be is often a meant to be. So think for a moment about the places where you belong to today. Think about your family, think about your partner, think about your neighbors, your group of friends, your acquaintances as well. Organizations you might belong to, your work. Work can provide all kinds of places to belong. And I just want you to give a moment and think about these places. Do you fit in, and why? Do you feel loved and accepted, and why? Do you feel challenged and fed and energized? Glad to be a part of? Does it represent you? Like if people were outside looking in and they looked at your family and said, yeah, they're a lot like you. I can see that. That makes sense for you. We see this as a good thing for you. And that's the other thing is, if you go to join something new, let's say, and all your friends are kind of looking at you like, I don't know about that. Why would you want to go do that? Or they're like, ooh, good for you. I think other people's intuition, if they're healthy enough, we can kind of count on that, especially if there's 2 or more people, right? You know the rule of thumb. If 3 people say, yeah, go do it, it's a good sign. If 3 people say, I don't know, then it's something to think about. And as we grow and change, what often happens is we become more and more congruent, or we crave congruence, where we make sense. Our insides match more and more of our outsides. And so what can often happen, like I've talked about before, is we're going to start taking a look around and figure out where we fit. And there might be places where 3/4 of you fit or half of you fit, and you just put the other half of you on the shelf. You know what I'm talking about, in order to belong. But it didn't fully represent you. And today it's excruciating to go back to that book club where maybe those people have a very different set of values. And you wonder why you have anxiety every month when you have to go, that you're going to find it difficult to let go. And there's going to be some conflict, right? And there's going to be some conflict within ourselves. As we grow, we outgrow, like we've been talking about. And that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. You're not uncaring, discompassionate, or selfish. It's just a thing. It's part of the journey, and it's part of the process. And sadly, if others don't want to grow, or maybe they're growing in a different direction than we are, you kind of can't undo reality there. So what does that look like for family? Because that's what everybody always asks me. Well, assuming that's not a toxic relationship, because if it's a toxic relationship, you may have to put some serious distance between you and them. But let's say it's not, but they just don't get your new spiritual thing. They don't get your new yoga thing. They don't get your new environmental thing or your adventure thing. That's okay. It just means that you can love them and talk about things that you do still share. But being frustrated with them is normal, that they can't, applaud you for your new venture or be excited for you. That's okay. We can't meet on all points with everyone in our life. The rule of thumb is, as long as it doesn't make you go against your own values now, go ahead and keep that relationship. It may be more limited, which is sad, but that's okay, because hopefully you're going to seek out or have already sought out more like-minded folks, people who you feel like a better fit with, and that's fine. When I work with relationships, what I find often as well is that, especially when I'm working with a couple, it's like they've imploded upon themselves, which is why they're in front of me, because oftentimes they don't have enough healthy supports, other places to belong to. I sat with a couple recently that they're just so exhausted, they've had so much going on, and if one leans on the other, they're both going to fall down. So I talked to them, I said, where are your other supports? Yes, you are each other's primary person, but we need to make sure that we have other places to belong as well, so we don't burden our partner, our spouse, or our kids for that matter. Especially if you're a single parent, it's too easy to get too much belongingness from being with the kids, and they need you to have other healthy places to belong with other grown-ups. Other places where you can receive healthy mirroring, like-mindedness, a place that you are a part of, something greater than yourself. The other reason is we can't keep emptying the relationship basket every week. We need to have things that we put in it, things that we're learning, things that we're starting to do differently to make us better people. And we can rub off on our partner and our kids in really, really healthy ways. I mean, the typical example is one of you gets in shape and you get healthier and you join a walking group or a running club or your gym or a spin class, and you make some friendships out of that, and then they come over to your house. Well, that's going to kind of influence your family in a healthy way. Maybe your kids want to eat healthier. They want to be as healthy as you are. Maybe your spouse gets on board. So there are value-added things that we can bring back home from wonderful places to belong. And again, it's about where you fit, and it's about where you are best fed. And just because you can belong doesn't mean you should. Just because others want you to be there too, that's another thing we have to talk about, doesn't mean you have to want to be there. That could be about them, and that's okay. They can have their thing. Doesn't mean that you don't love them, that you don't want to, let's say, become a political activist like they do, or a huge environmentalist, or things like that. You can be different. And healthy relationships and families can tolerate individual differences. Again, you need enough like-mindedness to have compatibility. But if people are feeling threatened by you wanting belongingness with other groups, that's their own insecurity, and that's okay. So today we explored the concept of belongingness and being fed and finding places where you best fit. Don't stress out if you didn't have a lot of answers today for yourself. My encouragement is that you just give some thought in the next 2 weeks about where you feel most at ease and at home and relaxed and are able to be your true self and fall apart if you need to be vulnerable, to grow, to be humble, to be open. And my hope is that you can take the next 2 weeks and just observe, just like you were doing a science experiment. Remember those? Just notice. Notice who feels right. When do you feel most alive? Who's around you? Why does that make sense? You're just observing. You're just taking a moment and quietly noting. Who feels right to be around for you? Or maybe who are you longing to be around? Because that can be a whole nother thing, like we talked about earlier in the episode, that we want to take a look at. Because when you grow and change, you're going to want to belong to different people and different groups more than likely, and that's okay. That's a good thing. You want to think about who you are, how you see the world, and what hits your heart the most. And just observe and take some notes, and don't be hard on yourself. Just notice and observe and take that in. Honoring yourself, trusting yourself, Self-acceptance, self-love, I think, goes hand in hand with healthy belongingness. And I say healthy because that means folks who are healthy enough, they have good enough boundaries, a good enough sense of self, open to learning, open to growing. It's emotionally safe. You share similar views, similar passions, maybe similar beliefs and values so that you feel comfortable. Belongingness is a big deal, and I think it is one of the biggest environments we can look at and really do a thorough assessment on it. Again, it could also be where some big upheaval can happen in your life. Don't be surprised, and you can plan for that, and you can deal with that as you go. All right, so thanks for joining me today. Next week, we're going to wrap up the month on belongingness, and we're going to talk about your personal spaces. So if you're already a subscriber, you got the newsletter today, and you're all good to go. You can listen to this there again if you like, and any downloads for any of the past episodes are also accessible in past newsletters. If you are not a subscriber, just go to www.ownitpowercast.com and sign up, and you will get that every Tuesday. You won't get a whole bunch of other stuff from me. I really try to keep it compact. And if you found this helpful, please reach out and put a positive review out there so that others know what you're getting out of this experience. You'll be helping them find the podcast and get the help they need. So, like I say, pay it forward. Keep focusing on you. Be proud of yourself. And see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.